It's a TXWaterpolo show special today with an extended interview with one of the most successful coaches in Texas history. And while his record as a coach is impressive, his story about living and leaving Nicolae Ceausescu's Romania is one of the more fascinating conversations I can remember. So here's Mihai Oprea, head coach at St. Mark's School and Trident Water Polo in Dallas, Texas. Six-time state champion, several-time coach of the year, and a pioneer of water polo in Dallas. It's Mihai Oprea, head coach at St. Mark's. How are you, Mihai?
Hi, James. I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Good. This is we're talking obviously in a time when we got some spare time about the history of Texas water polo, and it would be ridiculous not to get a chance to speak with you about it, given the success that you've had. St. Mark's has been a very successful program over the years and has won several championships, as we already discussed. But what is interesting is your story about coming to Texas in the first place, because if you don't know who Mihai Oprea is, he's a native Romanian who came to this country in 1997. Is that right?
I came in 91, actually, but started at St. Mark's in 1996, 97, yes.
Got it. So, but I wanted to see if we could go back a little bit about your experience in Romania, because another thing that Joe and I have been talking about is our own experience as players, because we did actually play at some point, and obviously you did too. So is there a way that you can describe what a sort of athlete's experience would be in 1980s, 1970s Romania?
Sure. Well, I started in 1977. And I started in a club. So in Europe, water polo, like any other sport, was not a school sport. So in school, you just go to school and you do physical education, but there are no sports. So if you want to play a sport, you have to join a club. And the clubs have several disciplines, including water polo. So I was fortunate enough that in between all the other sports that I tried and I played, I also been lucky enough to start and play water polo in 1977.
And was that because you were interested and you went to them, or was there somebody recruiting you?
No. I had no idea about water polo whatsoever.
Okay.
So the short story is I spent all my childhood in Transylvania with my grandmother. And when I came to be around 10, 11 years old, she was very worried about me because we have a huge river close, and as kids we go and swim in the river, and she didn't think I'm a strong swimmer, so she told my father, you need to get this guy that's a better swimmer, because if you don't, I don't want him here anymore, because I don't want him to be responsible. So my dad, of course, the first opportunity, he took me and put me in swim lessons. And again, the luck was that the swim instructor was a ex-swimmer and ex-water polo player.
Okay.
So I went through this 2-week course, and I was kind of at the top of the group of those kids. And he came to me and he says, "Hey, listen, we are finishing up. Would you be interested to play water polo?" And I said, "Well, I have no idea what it is." And, "Hey, it's in the water. It's fun." I said, "Yeah, sure. I want to." So I went to my dad and said, Dad, can I play water polo? My dad said, "Yeah, whatever, go try it." So that's how I started, And I remember the funniest story now is that my first practice, I went there, was an outdoor pool, a 25-meter outdoor pool, and I come in, I say, "Coach," and they say, "Oh, it's great to see you," and they start the warm up, and then they said, "Well, jump in and do 100 mix." And I said, "What's 100 mixed?" And he says, "Well, 25 fly, 25 back." And I said, "I don't know what it is, Coach." And he said, "Don't worry about it. Just look at the other kids and do exactly the same thing."
Right.
And that was my swimming instruction. Of course, I threw up after the butterfly. So, yeah. But that's how I started.
That's a great story to start. And then once you're established with this club, what's it like? I mean, is it comparable to an American club in the sense that you're competing against your local rivals and so on? Are you playing internationally? What happens with you in your career?
Yeah, so this club particularly It was not.
Which was what, by the way? Let's give your club a
yeah. It was called the Sports Club number 2. So
Okay.
it was SS2, which is a very small, not one of the biggest powerful clubs in Bucharest, like Steaua or Dinamo. So, but we're lucky that we had this coach that was an extraordinary coach. So, was a swimmer, was a water polo player. This is the guy who taught me how to swim. And we had a group of guys who were born in 1965. And there we go by years, 1965, 66 together. And we grew up together as a team. And we won 6 straight national championships, starting from 12U, 14U, 16, and so forth. And 6 or 7 of us end up being on the national junior team and the senior team.
Wow.
So we're very, very lucky that we're in this great program and with great guys that we stuck together. Yes, we did play. Of course, we had a municipal championship like is Bucharest, all the teams in Bucharest, which is the biggest center for polo in Romania. Then you play nationally, and at that time there were only like 3 or 4 other big cities in Romania that play polo. One of it is Oradea, which is kind of one of the famous spot for water polo. And the strongest teams were either the Steaua or Dinamo, the police team or the army team in Bucharest, or the team in Oradea. So we're competing against those guys, and of course we have training trips, most of them in Hungary, in Budapest, in Yugoslavia, like either to Belgrade or Zagreb. So mostly our trips are in Eastern Europe, since it was a communist country. We played in the Balkan Games and of course European Championships and every other international competition. But mostly you would play in the internal championship, like the Romanian Cup or the Romanian Championship, and that usually finished with a final tournament that you have like the top 8 teams in the country, and you play a final tournament through the national team, so you get national champions.
Got it. Okay. Someday you and I need to talk offline about your experience traveling, because I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
When you're as a team, because you're under these certain restrictions when you do so, and so I find that stuff very fascinating.
Yeah,
but
there's some good stories out there.
Some of which we could probably broadcast, some not, but that's okay.
Yeah, mostly probably not, but yeah.
I want to jump ahead to actually a really significant period in history, which was the totalitarian leader of Romania since 1965 was Nicolae Ceausescu.
Yep.
And he fell, his regime fell in 1989, along with most of the rest of the communist world. Yep. But my recollection of talking with you was that you were there at his final speech.
I was there. Actually, it happened after a practice. I was with one of my friends, came after practice. I went to his house, and then we're hearing that things are happening, and let's go. So we went there, and we ended up in the whatever the Communist Party Central Committee in the Palace Square, but that was a meeting, kind of like his last meeting, and the square was absolutely full of people. So we ended up being kind of the back of the crowd, but yes, we were there, so it was very interesting.
Ceausescu and his wife were then sort of taken out in a armored personnel carrier and taken to this interesting trial and then executed. And I mention it because this is all on YouTube. Like, you can find this stuff, and for any of you who are curious about what a speech like his would look like, and then the aftermath of that, you can find it. It's pretty incredible.
Yes, and being there is even more incredible because living in communism all my life, just thinking of communist falling is kind of more like I would probably I will end up walking to the moon easier and faster than communist falling. So it's out of this world kind of feeling. of course, in the front there, all the people, the organizers, so everybody's like clapping and
Yeah, party members, right? Mainly.
yeah, all the party members, all the security, all the secret police, everybody is in front, so they're clapping and cheering for him. But then pretty soon into the speech, when he started thanking the people who organized the meeting and all that, they start hearing what's actually was happening in the back. So that kind of startled him, and from there start going down with he started promising things, and his wife was telling him what to say, and
he's telling everybody to shut up.
Yeah, screaming at people, and so eventually they took him, went on top, and flew out of the helicopter and went back to his residence in Znagov. And it's just, like you said, you probably can find all that on YouTube right now.
What's incredible is so obviously you're getting state-controlled media, so you see what the crowd is looking like. You see the sort of the staged reactions of those people who are in the front row. Every time he says something, there's a supposedly spontaneous reply, which of course is ridiculous. But what you mentioned what was going on in the back? Because the crowd was vast, and then suddenly there's basically screaming.
Oh yeah, where people are like screaming from the beginning, and people are screaming about everything what happened in Timișoara a few days before, the city in the Western Romania where this kind of started, and people they kind of they didn't know at the beginning how to do it, and of course they're afraid, and then more and more people were kind of losing it in a way. So it became more and more evident that people in the crowd that are not happy, and they're screaming against him, and it's definitely something is happening there.
Right, and then again, from my recollection of earlier conversations, then the gunfire started.
Well, yeah. So, but you didn't know who's shooting where, and bullets flying everywhere, flying into the royal palace, the library. Just the library got on fire, and so it's panic, because you have no idea who's shooting from where and why. But before that, people actually got inside the Communist Party and sacked the place and throwing things. So the shooting didn't start immediately. I left with a video with my friend because we heard that. A lot of things are happening in the television. The Romanian television is the only one, national television. So on the way, I stopped at my house to talk to my dad, and my dad said, "You don't go anywhere because this is a coup. This is not a revolution. So you need to stay in the house because they're the same people at the television, they're the same communists that you know." So my dad knew exactly from the very beginning that that's not truly a revolution. So it was very interesting. So
very. I could talk to you about this for maybe an hour and a half, but I think we'll move on just a little bit. But it does sort of lead into the larger question. When was it that you knew that you wanted to go to the U.S. and what, or anywhere aside from Romania? And then what was that process like?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I would say probably after I finished my military training. After I came out from the army and went into university, probably in my sophomore year university, I started well, I can't live here anymore, because that's when everything went to the dark in Romania. So the darkest years when Romania was the only country that paid their national debt, and was nothing in Romania. There was nothing to eat. There's no heating. There's nothing. There's no gas for cars. So it was apocalyptic, I would say. And at that point, I'm like, I got to get out of here with any risk. So I was planning on maybe swim over Danube into Yugoslavia and try to move on. I had friends that did that. So we've been planning for all kind of escape routes. And of course, to me, it was always America, So my friends like, well, Italy's better, Germany, close. I said, nah, to me, it's America. That's the only place I want to be. Why? Maybe because my coach lived in America.
Okay.
and that influenced me. Maybe because I had some friends that and maybe because of the movies, all the American culture that I love so much as a teenager. So to me, it was always American.
Well, then fascinating stuff. The idea of having to swim away to freedom is so interesting. But
Yeah.
Then the decision was made and the process began, and then suddenly you end up in Dallas, Texas, of all places. How does that happen?
Yeah, life is very interesting. So in 1990, by some luck, I just went to a meeting, and I met a American lawyer from Detroit, and he wanted to start a company in Romania at that point, and that which we became the first legal adoption company in Romania.
Oh.
And I end up that I ran that company, and for a year I had couples from the United States, from Michigan, from California, from Texas, coming to adopt children from Romania, and did everything there, represent them in the court, fight kids, so the whole process. So it was very complicated and emotional. But to make it short, we had a couple from Richardson that I became really close to them. They went through some extraordinary times there. I helped them out, and they adopted a little boy from Romania, and the American embassy denied the kid visa. So I end up keeping the kid in my house for like 3 months. And then I had a visa, because it was very difficult to get a visa for the United States in 1991 when I came. But I got a visa through my my employer, through my law firm from Detroit. Got a visa. By that time, the kid got a visa. So I came to the United States, and I had to bring the kid to Richardson, to Texas. So since I didn't know anybody in America, I had no relatives, no friends. This guy, his name is Rick Kosman, said, "Well, you got to stay in Texas. It's God's country. Where are you going?" And I said, "Sure, if you think so, I'll stay here." I had no idea water polo is in Texas. To me, I knew the American people. I played against the Americans, of course, but I had no idea how big America is. I had no idea that polo is just in California. And so I thought polo is everywhere. I said, "Sure, I'm going to stay in Texas." So that's kind of in short terms, short lines, how I end up in Texas in May of 1991.
Yeah, and of all places in Texas, that's so great. I mean, we're much better off for having you here than in California. I'll put it that way.
Well, thank you. You're very nice.
A quick note is that just the sheer number of children that were left in orphanages around that time, just a really heartbreaking story. So I had no idea that you were involved in that process of adoption.
Very emotional, very emotional. Like I said, that 1 year for me, it probably took 5 years of my life, because to go through all the emotions of these couples trying to get the kids, and sometimes they can, sometimes they can't, and it's very emotional. So it was rewarding for me, but also was very tough. So
yeah,
I'm happy for what I did, but I would not do it again.
No, and it wasn't soon, but you did eventually end up at St. Mark's, and it wasn't necessarily for water polo. When you signed a contract with them and that you knew that you were going to be working there, did you have any particular aims in mind?
Yes. So I was the aquatics director at Four Seasons, and through friends, I found out that St. Mark's was the only school in Dallas that had water polo.
In 75 and 77, I think, right?
Yeah, that was in the 70s. They won in 75, 77. Of course, it was a lot smaller state then, but they did win. But in the mid-80s, they dropped the program because there was no competition in Dallas. So all the games were in San Antonio or Houston, and the coaches got tired of traveling every weekend to play, so they dropped the program.
Right.
So to me, I went to the athletic director and I expressed hey, look, this is who I am. I would like to start it back. And he said, well, I'm not sure if we want to, but maybe we can use it to do other things here. And I said, fine. And then after that, that was in 96, he called me and said, you're not going to believe it, but I have like 3 or 4 kids that would like to play polo. So I came in 96 and I did a season of polo voluntarily for St. Mark's and then went away. And then in 97, they called me and said, look, we have a job for you if you want. And I came in and I started coaching volleyball and soccer. And then I started a rugby program, and then I started a team handball program. So I coach a lot of things, but of course, the only thing in my mind was to start water polo again. And in 1999, I took the swim team as the varsity coach of swim team. And then from there on, I started pushing water polo and I built the swim team around the water polo team, which eventually in the long term was a great success for the swim team. And had to drop handball in 2009.
Finally.
I had to do it because we moved to spring, and handball was a spring sport. So we dropped handball and kind of obviously moved on like anybody else in the state. Was a kind of an explosion of water polo after 2009. So the best thing that ever we done in this recently was moving to spring, no question about it.
Right. I didn't realize you were involved in all the weird European sports that Americans don't understand. Handball, water polo, football.
Trust me, it was funny try to even introduce it to people. But you're going to be surprised. Team handball was an immense success at St. Mark's. We played in Junior Olympics, won the California State Championship for 10 years. Wow. We hosted the Texas Cup, and handball was amazing. And we had some amazing kids, that now they played in NFL and all that played handball for me. And it was great. Rugby was also good. Judo, I had to do judo.
Wow.
So a lot of
eclectic. Team handball is so awesome. And I admit I'm one of those who watches it, essentially every 4 years. So I'm missing out on it this summer with the delay of the Olympics. But it's not only, it's really fun to watch in and of itself, but it's also an incredibly useful water polo training method.
I think it's water polo on land. That's what I think of. It's no question about it. It's this. Obviously you can do different techniques and different type of tactics because you're on dry land, but the whole idea and the concept, it's the same game.
We've reached the halfway point in our conversation with St. Mark's head coach Mihai Oprea, but before we come back, here's a message.
Right about now, you might be expecting some song and dance about a product you don't need. Well, shush, we don't advertise here, and we want to keep it that way, so we sure would appreciate your help. Show your support by going to TXWaterpolo.com/donate so we can keep covering the sport we love in the great state of Texas.
We return with more with head coach Mihai Oprea. So by the end of the 90s, you weren't yet a varsity sport. I think the swim team has long been established as one of the good teams in the States as a varsity sport, but water polo was not until 2004?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so how did that, was that the plan all along? I mean, it only makes sense that it would.
Well, yeah, that was obviously the plan, but it was a uphill battle. As you probably know, since 98, 99, there are very few programs here. It was Chris Collin at Denton and Regina Moss at Richardson and Pierce and St. Mark's up here. And obviously everybody starting from zero. And then moving on and getting a zone here in 2000 with Temple in our zone, and starting from there, So in 2000, when it was the first time for the North region to have a championship, so from 2000 to 2009, only the top team, the team that wins the championship in the North region, would go to state, but not really going to state. They would have to have a play-in game to get into state.
Wow.
So we did that for years. In 2000, Temple won, Then from 2001 over for many, many, many years, St. Mark's won, and we won in, and of course the first few years we lost the first game by 30, 40 points, of course. We got destroyed. But then, like you said, in 2004, finally, we became varsity. That made a little difference, because we can attract a few more kids. But again, it was a long process, trying to get support from the administration, trying to get the kids' interest to play. You might know the pool at St. Mark's. We're very lucky to have one, but it's not necessarily good for water polo. So you're trying to sell a sport that you can actually practice in that pool.
Right.
So it's a long process, but it was a good one.
I admit that I've actually never been to the St. Mark's campus. I've been here since 2011, give or take a year or two. Yeah, so I need to make my way up there. So you are one of many Europeans who have come to this country with a water polo background, and I'm always fascinated about your experience with the athletes here. And what I mean is, there's most definitely different cultures around the world as far as athletes are concerned. What was it that you learned about the differences in that Americans exhibited, in comparison with Romanians and other Europeans?
Yeah. No, I understand. Well, my biggest problem at the beginning was the lack of games and the lack of playing, because I had to be consistent on this discipline of kind of delay gratification and work on your skills, work on your fundamentals rather than just play. So I encountered this problem that the kids just wanted to play. They didn't want to spend time on conditioning. They didn't want to spend time on swimming. They didn't want to spend time on legs. They didn't want to spend time on ball handling. They just wanted to play. And it took a while to convince them through generations, that, hey, you just can't play. This is not playing. This is kind of like backyard play. You can do that in your own pool. That is not polo. So you pretty much had to change the entire culture of the program. So when a kid came to the program, they knew what to expect. They knew that they were going to have to bust their butts, in practice and conditioning and skills and technique and fundamentals. So I think that's what the difference that you are mentioning is. The time that European coaches are spending on fundamentals. And I think, it's a total different culture, and the coaches there can be a little bit more strict. Let's put it that way. There are a lot more things you can do to your athletes than here. And the family will understand it, actually will support it. Here will probably get arrested. So, so you know what I'm talking about. But with time, if you develop a culture of hard work and discipline, and, that the kids actually like it. That's what I learned, that the boys, and I coach only boys at St. Mark's, of course, that boys like discipline. They really do. They don't want to show it. But we're pack animals, so they like discipline and they like leadership. So with time they learn, but it was tough,
That's a great way to put it, the pack animal things. And so you led your pack to its first state championship in 2009. What are your memories of that year and of that team?
Oh, that's just the most fun and most great memories, of course, because your first one, and we knew how long it took us, from the 2001 playing game when we lost to Clear Lake 42-1, I think, or whatever it was, and with having kids that could not swim 25 straight, and a goalie could not tread water for more than 10 seconds and had to go hang on the wall, and then end up winning a championship. Can you imagine? It's just, it was, obviously, we won a few more times after that, but no one is as sweet at that one, because it was the first and it was unexpected for anybody, So we had a great group of kids at that time, not necessarily the the best there in terms of water polo players, but they had the heart, and that team would never lose. I mean, they would not allow anybody to beat them. So proud of them. It was just great memory.
So maybe a little bit less skilled than some of your later teams, but as much heart as you've ever seen, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question about when you talk about skill and fundamentals and swimming ability or shooting or anything, they're just like not even close to any of the teams from 2003 up. So, but again, they're a great group of guys, great leadership, and this attitude that I'm not going to let you walk over me, and took the challenge, and it was amazing. Very proud of those kids.
Right, and so then a loss in the state championships in 2011, and then a run that began basically 2014, in which you won 5 out of the following 6 years.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that you're more interested really in the consistency of this team over that period of time. So there's an 11-year period in which you were top 3. Is that right?
That is correct. From 2009, we were every year in the top 3. Either win, came in second once, and third, and that every year was by losing by 1 goal in a semifinal. So we're very close. Every year we're legit chances to win. So exactly what you said. The consistency is what I'm really proud of that program, and the kids and everybody who was part of it. My coaching staff, that I think is amazing, with Spencer Dornin and Peter Hudak and Alex Stankovic and my wife with Mihai Oprea throughout the years. I mean, they're just amazing coaches, and we had amazing kids. So, to be there in the top 3 for 12 years, and I think we had legit this year would be probably in the top 3, and looking at the rosters and teams probably next year too. So that's a great run. So I'm really proud of that.
There's nothing more fun than speculating about who, and we're assuming that there will not be a state championship this year. That we might be wrong about that, but that's one of the most fun speculations, is whether it's St. Mark's, whether it's Geyer, whether it's Foster, somebody else. Who knows? But it's a cool water cooler talk, as they say.
Absolutely. I mean, all these teams, Geyer is an exceptional team with Cameron and Chris Collin as a coach, and obviously they have an unbelievable chance to win this year. Same thing with Foster and Scott, and maybe other teams did, but we do too. We always said, we do have a chance. And again, if we would not win, I'm almost sure we'd be in the top 3. So. But again, I hope you're wrong. I hope you have a chance.
Me too.
To play, but unfortunately, I am so sad for the seniors, and looking at like Chris's team with his son on the team, and all the seniors he has on the team to not have this chance is tragic, and I'm so sorry, and for my kids too, and all the other seniors there. It's just a tragedy. But it's not much we can do about it.
No, not really. Here, let's get into some controversial questions. My selection, when Joe and I come to the end of the best team that I've ever seen, is your 2015 team that Tim Simmons was the captain of.
Right.
And that shouldn't be a surprise, but I've only been here since 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
I will ask if you have a favorite or the best of your teams, but you don't. I wonder whether you want to answer that. But if you don't want to answer that, do you recall a team that you observed, not St. Mark's, that was the most impressive over the course of your career?
Well, you're right. I mean, I'm proud of all the teams, and we know we look better sometimes than other times, but I think each team that won was an amazing team, and but you're right. I mean, other teams that I liked throughout my career here, obviously Clear Lake, were kind of like the top when we started with Tom Landgraf there. Sterling with Mac, and then Scott. There's some teams from San Antonio. I can't remember now exactly the name, but or the kid, and I'm sorry about it because this is one of the best kids I've seen on a San Antonio team. I remember, can't remember exactly the year, but Straight Jesuit had an amazing team, and everybody thought they were going to win. And we had this team from San Antonio. I can't remember the name of the kid but I think he scored 9 goals in that game and took Straight Jesuit out. And that was amazing to see. So there's some teams out there that I enjoyed. Cy Cricket sometimes, the couple of years. So definitely lots of good teams, lots of good players, individual players. I haven't seen a team yet that would have 7 people in the water that are amazing. So. But again, there were 2 or 3, that they're like just amazing players, and these guys obviously end up playing college and Division I college, and there are a bunch of them from Houston, there are a few from Dallas, of course.
Right.
So it's hard. It's hard. I really have to start thinking really hard about this and kind of put it on the paper and look and try to scratch my memory to be, really fair in saying which team I think is the best.
That's all right. We put you on the spot for a reason, and again, we can talk to you offline about whether there's something that stands out. So,
right.
We want to wrap up here because we've taken a bunch of your time. But the news is you're leaving Texas and going back to Romania, and so as you're leaving, there's a couple things that come to mind. One is that. I don't think I've ever heard you speak about the UIL decision, which is detrimental to St. Mark's, which has had such success. What have you been thinking about that entire thing?
Well, I always supported it, and the reason I supported it is because I believe it's the right thing for the sport, and I think the sport itself is bigger than St. Mark's. It's bigger than any coach. Because that's the future of the sport. So even though I didn't actively participate in meetings and all that, but I always supported. I always supported with Chris Cullen, with Joe, and anybody else. I knew it would be bad for us, and we're working on figure out ways for St. Mark's, because evidently it wipes us off from playing in a state.
Right.
So that's probably one of the worst things can happen to St. Mark's, but one of the obviously the best things can happen for the sport. So I had to be fair, and I love the sport and I love the kids, and we need to do what's best for the sport, and again, unfortunately for St. Mark's, is the best for the sport.
Well, can you tell us anything, and maybe you can, maybe you can't, about whether the SPC, which is the conference in which St. Mark's typically competes for the rest of its sports, it's a small conference within the state, but still has some pretty powerful members. Has there been any effort amongst them or any other conference to create its own sort of league or championship with water polo?
Yes, I know, like Joe and Chris Cullen and myself, we tried. We got Green Hill to play for a while. We had the Cistercian play for a while. We are obviously now with the administration at St. Mark's, we're trying to help and kind of put a little bit of pressure on other teams from SPC and TAPS. To try to start a program, putting some pressure on Green Hill right now. You know what I mean? Pressure, just try to convince them that it's a good sport to do. So,
right.
So obviously this is the only future for St. Mark's. Would be a private state championship. We tried. Joe Linehan worked really hard in the past. We had a couple of those, but only 3-4 teams. So we need to grow that. We need to try to recruit more SPC teams, TAPS teams. So a team like St. Mark's will continue to have a future in the sport. So because there'll be a shame to see that sport going or diminishing in any way at that school.
Well, I understand that your return to Romania might be a temporary one. You're not entirely sure. In 20 seconds, what are you doing back in your country?
Well, we built a pool with a couple of friends, so we have our own pool and fitness center, and start a program there with swimming, polo, fitness, swim lessons, anything that has to do with aquatics. And we are building that pool. It's almost done. I believe in 2-3 months from now, going to be completed. But like you said, it's nobody can look in the future and be sure how it works. So at this point is temporary. So kind of work out of the country, abroad, and see how it works. And never know. I mean, it might be something that I don't want to do. Maybe I just want to be here. So, but maybe something that would work. So at this time it's kind of in the air, but yes, I have to change gear and start working on that project now for me.
That might be a conversation worth having with you before you end up taking off, whenever that might be. I mean, obviously schedules are all up in the air at this point,
right,
but
right.
Something for us to talk about in the future. But until then, Mihai, it's been a delight to speak with you, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. The same to you. Stay safe. Thank you, James.
Thanks for listening and telling a friend about the TXWaterpolo podcast, and be sure to visit totalwaterpolo.com, our other site, to find some very useful educational materials and, of course, news and features about water polo throughout the United States. And if you're wondering why we end the show with this music, well, that's Playground by 12 Hour Mary, whose lead singer is Brett Bixby, standout water polo player at Long Beach Wilson High School back in the 80s and my former bandmate. So go check out his solo work at myspace.com/Brett Bixby.
Just imagine all the things that we could do if I could spend it on myself and you. Trying to turn the world into a playground with all my might. Tables are turned and the ride is on the way round. Hold on tight, waiting in line.
This has been a production of TWP Sports LLC.